Most of what parents are told about raising faithful kids is wrong, basically.
Okay.
Because we hear for all the time, right? I did all the things. We took them to church
Yeah.
every Sunday. We sacrificed to send them to Catholic school. I mean, we said the rosary at home.
They've really sacrificed. They've really, really tried. And now their children aren't celebrating the Catholic faith. They're not getting their kids baptized. And these parents are truly aching and in agony over it.
And they did all the things, right?
Yeah.
All the things they were supposed to do. Unfortunately, those are all good things, but they're secondary things.
Welcome to the Fairest Love Podcast. Here we explore spiritual insights and practical strategies to help you cultivate a family life rooted in beautiful, self-giving love. Join us as we invite experts to share uplifting perspectives and actionable advice for navigating the joys and challenges of modern family dynamics.
Welcome back to the Fairest Love Podcast. Today I am joined with Dr. Greg and Lisa Popcak. I am so excited for this conversation. Welcome to the show.
Thank
Great
you
to be
for
here.
having us.
Nice to meet you, Jamie.
So just to dive in, for the viewers and listeners who may not be familiar with who you are and your work, do you want to take a moment to just introduce yourselves and share a little bit about the work that you do?
Sure. So we are the founders of CatholicCounselors.com, which is a group pastoral telecounseling practice. Since 1999, we've been working with Catholic couples, individuals, and families around the world. We do our group does about 30,000 sessions a year with Catholic individuals, couples, and families. So it's a lot. And then we host More to Life, which airs Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network and also on Sirius XM Channel 130. We are the founders of the Catholic Home app. That's Catholic HOM, stands for Households on Mission, where we provide marriage and parenting coaching for members and also tons of creative resources to help people build more loving, caring, and connected domestic churches. And we're members of the National Advisory Board on Marriage and Family Ministry for the USCCB.
Wow,
Did I miss
that's
anything?
amazing.
We think we're taking up the whole podcast. Just
Nice meeting you. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Bye-bye now.
Wow, that's quite an amazing list. And so I'm really excited to kind of dive into kind of the meat of the episode, which is, so you guys in 2024 you co-authored a study at the Center of Applied Research in the Apostolate at Georgetown. And you studied Catholic families who exhibited greater than average closeness and successfully raised all of their children to be faithful adults. And that is defined as being weekly Mass attendees with their own spouses and children. Can you share a little bit more about this study and your findings? I'm so intrigued.
Sure. What precipitated it was that there are just horrible numbers out there about retention of children growing up to be faithful Catholic adults.
Mm-hmm.
And when we first started the study, it was about 85% of kids left the Catholic Church in adulthood. Now it's up to 90%.
Wow.
So we said, all right, enough with all the doomsaying and everything's falling apart. Let's figure out how to make this work. Let's reverse this trend and really look at the families that had all of their children as adults now continuing to celebrate their faith and sharing it with their own children. So we interviewed the parents and the adult children because we didn't want just the parents going, oh, we were such perfect parents. That's why they turned out so great. So we did both, and we drew conclusions from that and came up with 12 habits that they all shared that were universal across all families. And it's amazing how easy they can be, but how effective they are to create happier families, closer families, but also families that have a real shot at their children loving and embracing the faith for their lifetime.
Yeah. And just to start, defining terms. So when you say faithful Catholics, you're meaning Catholics who not only attend Mass, but also practice it in their daily lives? Or how are you defining practicing?
So we actually had two different metrics. So first, the attending Mass weekly if they were married with their own spouse and children, because weekly Mass attendance is only about 15% of Catholics overall. So that's a significant number right there. But then secondly, we also administered an objective measure, the religious commitment inventory, which specifically looked at how much faith impacted daily life and decisions. And overall, the families, both the parents and the adult children who responded, scored in the top end of the religious commitment inventory survey. So, in fact, when they give reports on how to score the instrument, the only group that scored higher than the families in our group was basically Christian therapists who had taken the measure. So these were very committed people who not
Okay.
only went to church on Sundays, but really did live their faith in their daily lives.
Yeah.
And we also gave tests on family closeness and secure attachment, and also health of faith, because we appreciated that you can pass on an unhealthy faith.
Mm-hmm.
And so we found that in all cases, these families exhibited a very healthy kind of faith, and also unusual degrees of closeness in their relationships.
Yeah. And then also for clarification, when you brought up the statistic about, 85%, that's now 90% of Catholic adults leaving the faith, what determines that? Is that them fully rejecting Catholicism, or is that them just not caring and only maybe they go on Christmas and Easter with their family, but they just don't live it in their everyday life?
Yeah, so there are two studies. Our study found at 85%, and then a second study last year by the University of St. Thomas came up with a 90% number. And it basically comes down to not the faith not really impacting their daily lives, and
Okay.
only occasionally attending mass if they ever go.
Okay, gotcha. Very interesting. So, given the clarification of all this, you mentioned the closeness of the family and the how it was presented to the children growing up, the faith being presented, which would then result in the faith being practiced as adulthood. Sorry. For maybe the parent listening who's like, okay, that's great. What does that mean? How would you explain it to them?
Well, so most of what parents are told about raising faithful kids is wrong, basically.
Okay.
Because we hear for all the time, right? I did all the things. We took them to church
Yeah.
every Sunday. We sacrificed to send them to Catholic school. Maybe we said the rosary at home.
Maybe we sent them,
youth
they
group.
went to youth group, maybe we sent them to summer,
Yeah.
things where they could spend time with other teenagers who were Catholic and, catch on fire with the faith. And generally, whether there are clients or people we've talked to on our radio show, they're heartbroken. They've really sacrificed. They've really, really tried. And now their children aren't celebrating the Catholic faith. They're not getting their kids baptized. And these parents are truly aching and in agony over it. And so.
And they did all the things, right?
Yeah.
All the things they were supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, those are all good things, but they're secondary things. They
see.
only stick if the children experience the faith as the source of the warmth in the home growing up. So you can have a warm home, you can have a faithful home, but in order for faith to really stick, the parents have to find a way to convey that the faith is the source of the warmth in the home.
I see.
And so when children see that, they really understand that there's something about our faith that enables us to have close relationships. Most children's faith is primarily relational. Well, most people's faith is primarily relational. There are different stages of faith, but for the most part, people know that something is true of faith in particular is true because it facilitates our relationships. And so as adults, if they want to have strong marriage and family lives, then they feel that faith is a necessary part of that.
And when we say the warmth in the home, so they intuit over the course of their childhood, the happy times in our home were happier because God was part of it.
I see.
We had a moment to say thank you to God for that, or to acknowledge that it was a miracle, or to celebrate the feast days or the holidays together because they were centered around our faith. They gave us more joy. But also, when we went through hard times, we got through it together with prayer, with turning to God, with trusting God through it in a way that we discussed and helped each other with it. When the children went through a hard time, mom and dad would pray with them and allow them to be part of the faith experience of getting through that. And so we saw that, maybe even mom and dad had an argument, but they came back to each other through prayer or through going to church and going to confession together and then coming home or getting counseling together in some way that enabled their faith to enliven those good times and those bad times and everything else in the day. So it made their family a little bit happier, a little bit more stable, a little bit safer feeling than maybe the kids down the street.
Interesting. So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds as though like it's the parents' attitude towards their faith that, and it will trickle down to the children.
No, I mean, it's how the parents live the faith with their children.
Okay.
So, for example, I mean, a simple thing would be if I'm hugging my kids, I'm also making the sign of the cross on their heads and telling them that as much as I
Interesting.
love them, Jesus loves them.
Okay.
Or when we have a family game night, we, pray and we ask Jesus to help us to have a good time together. When we go to
Not
mass,
worry about winning or losing, but just
Yeah.
enjoy each other's company.
when we go to mass, we go out to breakfast together, maybe have a family day afterwards. So mass is the entry point for this day where we really carve out time to be with each other and spend
Yeah.
time with each other.
We talk about our faith. We talk about the books that we're reading, or the scripture that we got, or an answer to prayer, or what we got in prayer that day. We take time as a family to pray
Okay.
together and share that experience together. So it's not just mom and dad were really faithful and somehow we saw that from afar and it trickled down to us. We want to be like
Okay.
them. It's open conversation, shared
Mhm.
experience, really making God another member of the family every day.
Interesting.
I mean, a personal example. I mean, all of our children are adult kids, and they're all practicing Catholics and very passionate about it. And I mean, another example would be, so we didn't just pray over our kids, but we taught them to pray over us. So, you want to tell the story? I mean,
Well, there was one day in particular. Now, we had prayed over our kids every night before they went to bed and just asked God to bless them and to be with them, after we had discussed their day. And so they were used to that. But, kids are kids. Being a mom is hard. There's just no two ways about it. And I was having a particularly rough day with my children one day. It was dinner time, that said everybody called it the witching hour then, where the kids are losing it, the dinner's boiling over, you're exhausted. And I was having one of those days. And I was trying to keep dinner going. I was washing up the pots and pans that I was using, and the kids were fighting with each other. And I remember just looking out the kitchen window.
they were about 5 and 3 at the time.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
And I was looking out the kitchen window at the sunset over my sink, and I just said, Blessed Mother, you got to pray for me because I can't take this right now. I'm going to lose it. I don't want to be this mom. Help me. And I got this deep sense in that very moment after prayer that says, have them pray for you. And I had never thought of doing that before. And as Greg said, they were 5 and 3. But I just turned off the water. I threw the sponge in the sink and I was like, kids, come to the couch. Our living room is right off our kitchen. And they thought they were in trouble. And I sat down with them and I said, I don't want to be this person. This has been a bad day. Everything has gone wrong. You guys have been awful to each other. You haven't been too nice to me. We haven't had a lot of fun. And I don't want to be this person. And I need you to pray for me right now. And like within a second, and it had never happened before, my youngest one had her hand on my knee. The older one had his hand on my shoulder. These kids were touching me and started saying things like, God, please help us behave better for mommy so that she can feel better. Please give mommy peace and help her to know that you love her. Like all these beautiful little things that suddenly all that stress, all the condemnation that I was feeling for what was going on that day melted away. And we were suddenly a team. We were just a team together saying, so it was a bad day. God's going to give us the grace to change it all from here. And in that moment, not only did I feel better, not only did the kids start to behave better, but I saw a shift in them in our family prayer time. Suddenly in that moment, that the change in me, the change in our dynamic was so immediate and so peaceful and so beautiful that they intuited, oh my gosh, when I pray, it's powerful. Like it's not just mom and dad that are praying. When I pray, amazing things happen. I didn't get in trouble. Mom's happier. We're all happier. This is a better night. And that led them into step by step a very powerful personal prayer life of their own, where they knew when they pray, God listens.
And we're not saying that was universal across the families that we studied. It's just an example of how we lived prayer in the home. But again, to your point, it's not just that the parents were faithful and the kids saw that. It was that parents really looked for ways to bring their faith into the relationships with their children so that they could experience God's love in the interactions of daily life at home.
Yeah, I'm seeing like it's the direct involvement and all of that which follows.
Sharing. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. That's a beautiful story. I wanted to go back and touch on your point, Dr. Greg, about you threw out a comment that most parents don't have a correct understanding about parenting.
Well, we said that they don't get told how to help their kids
Yeah.
stay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Most of what people are told about raising faithful kids is just wrong.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
That was probably
Yeah.
a little bit of a jumbo.
Yeah.
But
That's okay.
I
Yeah.
wanted to touch on that because I think
Yeah,
that's something that probably a lot of our listeners' ears perked up and they're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
But could you elaborate a little bit more on what you think parents need to hear more when it comes to Catholic parenting? I know that you have these 12 habits that, you're giving people the guide to start implementing, but I wanted to kind of follow that thread a little bit.
Yes, kind of building on what we were just talking about. I think the number one thing is that Catholic parents need to be taught how to pray together as families. We talk to a lot of very devout Catholic families who tune into our show on EWTN, who access our resources at CatholicCounselors.com. I mean, these are people who are serious about
really
faith.
faithful people.
Yeah.
And they don't pray together. They pray on their own.
Never been taught how.
They pray on their own, but they don't pray together as families.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do, it tends to be more kind of saying words at God kinds of prayers. And I'm not knocking that in the sense that how, God wants us to pray and he receives whatever we do. And formal prayer is beautiful because it teaches us how to pray and it teaches us how to take our prayer life deeper. It's never meant to stand in place of personal prayer, of conversational prayer. It's meant to teach us how to have conversational prayer and how to take that conversational prayer deeper by creating space for a meditation, for example, with the rosary. And if we just do those kinds of formal prayers without cultivating that more personal prayer relationship, then kids experience prayer as sort of saying words at God or worse, saying words into the air. Right. And they don't develop an actual relationship with God. And so
if I could jump in for a second, when we do that, when that's the only way our children have been taught to pray, we'll recite the rosary, which we're all about the rosary. But if we're only taught we're going to recite the rosary or the Divine Mercy Chaplet or say this prayer from Saint whoever, which was, by the way, their personal prayer. They just happened to write it down and very poetically, and it lasted. But what they get is this kind of vending machine experience of God, where if I say this novena, this prayer, this whatever, I should have God answer my prayer. So if I'm praying, Lord, help me pass a test, or Lord, help this kid like me, or whatever, and we do that rote prayer without really talking to God about what we're going through and asking for his direction and asking for his consolation and being real with God, we think, I did all these rote prayers. And then what happens if it doesn't work out exactly the way I want to? Well, then a lot of our kids lose faith in God. I prayed, I didn't get my answer, so he must not be real or he must not like me. But when we teach our children to really talk to God, pray to God, talk to him as your best friend with your whole heart, and then use these beautiful, beautiful prayers that the church has given us, it deepens that relationship with him and it grows deeper, and he allows us to experience the whys of where he's going.
But to go back to your
real direction.
To go back to your question about family prayer, so praying that way as families means going to God every day and saying, okay, Lord, help us to be the family that you want us to be. This is what's going on, in the kids' life. This is what's going on in our life. Be with us as we try to figure this out. Help us to stay together as we go through this problem, or stay close to you. And we're praying together as a family and asking God to teach us how to be the family he wants us to be. I mean, so I think that's probably the number one thing that we'd really love for parents to learn more effectively, is just to go to, because you can have a household of Christians, but you can't have a Christian household unless you're asking God to teach you how to be the family that he wants you to be. I think that's number one. Number two, and this is actually one of the habits, is prioritizing family time. Everybody's overscheduled. So the number one thing that stood out from our interviews with these families is that they made sacrifices with regard to how many activities they and their kids were involved in, because they wanted to prioritize getting time together as a family. They prioritized family meals. They prioritized a family day. They prioritized game nights. You can't foster your children or disciple your children to a faithful adulthood if you don't have time with your kids. And just showing up for their games or their activities doesn't count. In fact, there was a big study that was done that looked at what's so-called booster parents, parents who go to their kids' games or support their kids' activities and sort of see that as the way they spend time together as a family. The study found that the kids discount that time and see that as their parents' social time because the parents are hanging out with other parents and they're hanging out with other kids. And so the time that families spend together in activities doesn't really count toward family relationship at all. And so these parents sort of intuited that and realized that if we want to have any kind of influence on our kids, we have to spend time with them. That didn't mean that they never did anything, but they were very selective and very particular about the kinds of activities they were involved in and made sure that they didn't step all over family life.
Yeah, definitely. That's actually a perfect segue into like one of our next questions. So July is the month of rest and leisure, and you mentioned how so many people are overbooked. And I think that it's just so natural for us to be busy and distracted and just have so much mental and physical clutter in our lives. You mentioned how one of the habits is prioritizing just family time. But like, what does that family time actually look like? You were talking about how, just showing up to a game doesn't count. What do you think, or what is one thing that you would recommend families start implementing in their routine to help foster family time besides saying, oh, we're going to have a day of just, we're only together? Obviously, that's fantastic. But is there anything daily that they can implement to help with this?
Yeah, there are a lot of things, but one of the things that you can do that's kind of easy, it's going to sound like we're adding stuff on, but just everybody breathe and let me get through it. We strongly, strongly encourage that you make the habit of having a little time every day to work and play and talk and pray together. Those 4 things: working, playing, talking, and praying. Now that sounds like I'm already overbooked. I never do get a chance to do anything. How in the world am I going to fit that in? But it's really about doing the things we do every day, but doing them together. So you're folding the laundry. Well, the kids, bring the kids along. You fold the laundry in a quarter of the time, and you're talking while you're doing that. We have a friend who's on our More to Life show on Fridays, and she has 11 children. And she would get the kids to help with the laundry, and when they were done, they'd throw sock balls at each other like a snowball fight. So they got a chance to work together, talk together, and play together just in that one thing.
But those working together rituals, whether you're washing the dishes together or cleaning up the family room before bed, the point isn't getting the task done. The point is using that activity to bond. And you're teaching a very relational approach to tasks and to work that shows that, as Fred Rogers used to put it, this is just another way to say I love you. To be together and to do these kinds of things.
Yeah. And right now we're so busy like assigning kids things on chore charts, and that's great for responsibility to a point. But how many of the things that we could do can we do together so that we're getting the chore done, but we're getting time to talk, we're getting time to share? Our youngest daughter, in her senior bulletin for her last play that she did at school, she wrote in there, I want to thank my mom for all the driving she did back and forth, all the laundry we folded together, all the walks we took together so that we could spend time and get to know each other's hearts. And it was like, I sat there in the audience just crying because I didn't know she was going to do it. But those times of working together and playing together and talking together ended up really paying off. She saw it. She intuited that this was different than a lot of her friends were experiencing. And it meant something to her. And so it's not adding a ton of stuff on. It's saying, I want to be with you. I want to get to know your heart. I want to spend time with you. So let's do some of these things together rather than waiting till all the chores are done, all the things are done. Because I know the days that I did that, I would lay my head down on the pillow that night and say, we didn't have any fun. We didn't get a chance to spend any time together. I'm a complete failure. When are we going to get a chance to do that? And to your point about July being the month of rest and leisure, one of the unfortunate things, and I'll call it out, people can dislike me for it if they want to, but one of these habits that we've gotten into in the past few years that's just got to stop is that parents think their children won't be happy to spend time with them. So they're starting to invite their friends' children on their family vacations. And then all of a sudden the kid hears, well, you're not going to like spending time with us, or we don't like spending time with you, but you'll like being with somebody your age. So you guys go off and swim and we'll just sit here, or we'll do something else. We need to reserve those times, especially if we only get a lot of time together on a vacation or something like that, to say, no, our family is primary. We love
Yeah.
you. We want to spend time with you. We want to have fun with you. We want to make family memories. And we want that relationship to last a lifetime. So we have to stop thinking that if we send our kids away to their friend who we take on vacation, to the baseball game, to the dance class, that everybody else is going to fill the need that they really have in their hearts. Because MTV, of all things, did a study a while back and asked teenagers what they most wanted. And MTV was blown away because they
Yeah.
said more time with my parents. And they never expected that to be the reaction of American teenagers.
Yeah. That's
So,
crazy.
yeah.
I really love your point about the spending time and how in the work and the play, it reminded me, so my older brother, he's got 6 kids, and their after dinner cleanup takes a while, but it's because everyone has a certain job, but their kitchen's all in one area, the dining room's all in one area. Everyone has their own job, but they all do the cleanup together, and the kids end up, just goofing off. When I spend time with them, I notice how much bonding happens during the after dinner cleanup because everyone's kind of just having fun, but we all have
Right.
this goal that the kitchen needs to be clean. At the end of this, the food needs to be put away and the dishes need to be done. But it is a really fun time. And I really like your point how really special memories come from this. And you are able to connect with the people in your family. And I think it's especially important as kids get older. There's more independence, there's different schedules, people begin to drive, and so you just don't have that connection. And so I think building those relationships when they are young and within the age of reason, because 2-year-olds can't do that much.
Well, you'd be surprised. You'd be
True.
surprised. You give them a Swiffer and you let them follow you around the living room while you're dusting and you're talking to them and you're playing
And
with
they're
them.
and they're
Music.
playing at helping, but that's an
Yeah.
But they're
important part
learning
of
a
socializing.
skill and
Yeah.
they're having fun with mom or dad. So, you can't just say, well, when they're 7, I'll get
Yeah.
to spend time with them. Or I would have
True.
to say, if you have kids who are driving themselves to their activities or have after school jobs, you need to sit down. One of the talk rituals is a family meeting every week. And you sit down with your calendars and you say, all right, where's everybody going to be what nights? And it's not just to figure out how many people you're cooking for on a given night or who has the car. It's to say, where are the breaks where we can spend some time together?
Yeah.
Whether that's one-on-one, mom goes out with one of the kids, for pie, or one of the sons goes out with dad to, hit some balls or to go to the hardware store. Those are things that are important. But where can we get the most amount of people in the family together and at what times? And so, I have friends who do a rosary every single night, but did it in this very family relational way. And their adult children will zoom into the family rosary whenever they're available because they've always had this mindset of let's figure out when we can all spend time together and connect together. So it's that idea of, well, once they're driving, we're never going to see them again. We have to actively work to make sure that we're scheduling that time.
And to that point with adult children and that shift of maybe it's not as easy to prioritize it, but you still need to prioritize it. How would you suggest the parents who are maybe listening and they're like, oh my gosh, all my kids are teenagers and we haven't implemented this and I don't know how on earth we're going to implement this. And they're just kind of overwhelmed with the idea of maybe they're not sure what to say to their kids or how to even approach this, this bonding time.
So they're going to be 2 stage. Well, I would say 3 stages to that. The first stage is that the parents have to be convinced that it's important.
Yeah.
The second stage is kind of bringing it to their kids and recognizing that our kids are going to play hard to get it first because we're naturally wired for connection.
Yeah.
And if we don't get it, then we become afraid to let the walls down. So a lot of times when we teach this to parents, especially parents with teenagers, for example, they'll try to institute some of this stuff. And then the teens are pushing back and they're like, well, we don't want to do that. Right. And then the parents give up because, oh, well, we tried and we don't want to force this down their throats. And it's not about forcing it down their throats. It's about saying, look, guys, we want to have a better relationship with each other. We want to get along better. We want to get to know you better. We want to and they're going to roll their eyes and they're going to be, but then they're going to push back. But you can say, so what would you like to do? What can we do together? I mean, maybe the kids want to play video games with you and that's okay. You take their lead and let them teach you the things that they're interested in. It's not, okay, well, we're going to all, do this thing that mom and dad came up with. And now you just have to, let's figure this out together. What do you guys like to do? Well, let's do that with you. You show us how to do that. And, puts them in the expert chair, which is kind
Yeah.
of fun for them. And lets us actually listen and learn from them, so.
Well, and can I
Yeah.
something that's just coming to mind, I just want to throw in. When you want to date somebody, when you're single, whether it's a cute guy, cute girl, whatever, you want to date this person, you don't walk in going, we need a better relationship. We should pray the rosary together every night, because you're not going to hit it off.
Yeah.
You have to show an interest in that person. You have to make them feel like they're cared about and that, you think they're special. If it's right, it'll break down those walls and you'll start doing things together, and we have to think of our relationship, getting our teenagers or our more adult children into relationship with us very much the same way. You don't want to order it around. You don't want to make it a point of discipline. You really want it to be a heart-to-heart connection. But the same way, if you really were like, I really want to date this person, I think they're kind of cool, you'd go at it with a way that was positive and affirming and connecting instead of heavy-handed.
Yeah. You think of creative ways to spend time together. When you love someone,
Yes.
you find creative ways to be with them.
That's right.
That's great advice. And then I'm just thinking of, we're starting with families who are young and they've got little kids. For the parents who have adult children who are out of the house and they have their own families, but they also want to have that intentional time. You mentioned you know of a family where they Zoom in for Rosary. Are there ways that they can have that family time, even though everyone else all their kids have their own families they attend to, that's beyond just a Sunday night dinner? Or
It could be some things as simple as a family chat group zooming in for a weekly meal together. Having a lot of families during COVID, suddenly discovered how to play games remotely with each other. It just takes some creativity and saying, hey, I'd like to have a connection with you. What can we do? And coming up with it together. And so whether you're far apart and you have to kind of connect digitally, or you live in closer proximity, it's still just about being intentional about saying, well, let's create some rituals where we get together to do these things at these particular times, so we can count on it and build it into the schedule.
I will say that when you become empty nester parents, when all of your children are grown, it's one thing if you have smaller kids in the house and the bigger kids are adults, and you still want the family traditions in your own home for those younger kids for a while. But if all your kids are grown, that's the time where you say all of these family traditions that involved everybody coming to our house for this particular holiday or all the holidays.
Yeah.
You realize your children want to form their own traditions. They also have their spouse's parents to be part of. So you have to look for ways to make that connection easier on them. That is how we become self-donative in that moment. Instead of we have to have, mom's stuffing at this time.
Yeah.
It's okay, how can I come to you and make your life easier? Can I come and bring something? Can I do something this way? If you live close enough, are you showing up for T-ball practice at 8:00 in the morning on Saturday, even though you want to sleep in?
Yeah.
Because that's what your adult kids and their children are doing. And then they can't say, well, we won't go to T-ball. We'll come to mom's house to, have brunch. There might be times for that, but you have to think, how can I be self-donative and support my adult children becoming spouses and parents so that they feel loved and supported by us?
I will say, though, kind of mention the T-ball thing, the first, say, 6 or 7 years of your kids' lives, that's a really strong, big opportunity to focus on establishing those rhythms of putting family time first. And, I think that parents are getting the message that if their children aren't in sports by the time they're 4 years old, or they're not in gymnastics, or they're not in theater, or they're not taking lessons, whatever, until by the time they're 3, then they're going to miss out, and they're not going to get into a decent school, and they're going to be. And really the opposite is true. We've overprogrammed kids. All the research really shows that the skyrocketing rates of anxiety in children are due to being overscheduled and not having enough connection. The reason we're anxious isn't really because of the problems that we have. We become anxious because we allow the problems we have to separate us from the people in our lives. Anxiety is really a call. It's hardwired into our brains to say that when I feel connected to others, I feel calm. Even when I'm going through difficulties. But when I feel disconnected from others, even in good times, I feel anxious because I'm not meant to be alone. And so, if you think about it, in walking through the woods with my Neanderthal tribe, if I've got my tribe, I don't have to worry about the saber-toothed tiger attacking me, right? We've got each other's backs. I'm walking through the woods by myself. I could get it.
Yeah.
So I better be on. And that's how we're wired. We're wired to be anxious if we're not connected. And so when parents buy into the lie that my kids need to be in 3,000 activities by the time they're 3 years old on a Wednesday, we're setting our kids up for anxiety. We're setting our families up for
disconnection
and stress, and an inability to really raise faithful kids because we don't have time to form them.
Yeah, it's a really good point. This is a little bit of an abstract question, but why do you think our society has moved in that direction? Like, why are we suddenly in this position where there is a ton of pressure to overbook ourselves, to enroll our kids in, as many sports as possible before the age of 4? Where did that come from?
I think that there are two primary factors. There's always a lot of other factors.
Yeah.
But first of all, I think with situations, especially when both parents are working, right? You're exhausted at the end of the day, but you still want your children to have fun. You still want them to have connection. You sort of want to be able to be there, but you need that break. So signing them up for an activity where you can sit in the bleachers and watch, or, whatever that is, you feel like you're there, even though this study that we just talked about says the kids don't really think you're there for them. But it gives you a way to keep them busy that allows you to feel like you're getting a little bit of a break. Instead of, I'm going to sit on the floor and play Play-Doh with you all night, or, do whatever. We don't think we can get that relaxation time at home. In fact, years ago, there was a 60 Minutes piece where there was a brand new business in Manhattan. And this is over a decade ago. Parents were paying to go to their children's daycare on a Saturday morning and play with the toys so they could relax while their kids were home with a nanny. I kid you not. Instead of just saying, I could be sitting on the floor playing with my kids and I can relax and we can play and we can have fun. We just have this mindset that we have to be separate. And I think the second component of that was during the COVID epidemic, when everything closed down and we were told our children were going to fall behind. They weren't going to be. There were a lot of teachers. And God bless them. I used to be a teacher myself, but there were a lot of teachers, especially of extracurriculars, who, when schools opened up, said, I have to prove I'm important. And so there was a huge push to sign your kid up for play practice and every sport under the sun, because this was going to catch them up. This was going to give them the skills they needed. This was going to pay off, 12 to 15 years from now, because sometimes these kids are 3, in a scholarship to college. And people were so drained and exhausted and concerned about their children's well-being that they said, well, if this is what I'm hearing, this is what I should do. And I'm seeing parents walk into dance classes with their little girls on their shoulders in a pink tutu going to a dance class. And these kids are 18 to 24 months old and they're sound asleep. And their parents have to wake them up to do this class because we're really buying into this. We've got to have them in activities. We've got to get them skills because somebody else could beat them out, or they may not have everything they need. And what they need is connection to their mom and dad.
That's really a great point. Kind of going a little bit back on track, you've written 2 parenting books, Parenting Your Kids with Grace and Parenting Your Teens and Tweens with Grace. But you've also created a Catholic app. It's called Catholic Home Households on Mission. Can you share about these resources? And it sounds as though they kind of go in tandem with each other.
So we have over 20 books altogether, but the Catholic Home app specifically talks about how to support families in living out this stuff that we're talking about. I mean, these ideas, they're simple, but they're countercultural, and there's not a lot of support for them. You're suddenly the family that's not overscheduled, and everybody's looking at you like, why don't you like people? Why do you want to hide in your house? We wanted to be able to provide expert coaching for parents who are trying to live out these 12 habits, and for marriages as well. And also give parents creative resources every month that enables them to really live out these ideas as a family. So in addition to the parent coaching that Lisa and I and our whole team of pastoral counselors at CatholicCounselors.com provide, every month we have a live stream event where the whole community can come together and ask questions and share ideas. We have an actually professionally animated 6 episode cartoon series that parents and kids can watch together to learn these ideas and really discover what it means to build a dynamic domestic church. We do downloadable activities every month. We have a great designer that we work with that produces some wonderful activities for families to be able to kind of experience the faith in fun ways at home every month.
We have a monthly calendar that'll have everything from the saint of the day and one little thing you can do to celebrate that saint thing. We are not into, you have to have big projects, you have to cut out a bunch of felt because parents are too busy. It's a little tiny thing you can do to celebrate that saint. But then we also have things like, pie day and, eat an ice cream cone day. They're all spread. There's something for every single day that you can look at the calendar and just say, oh, this is easy. I could do this today to have more fun, or I could do this to bring a little bit more faith and knowledge to my kids.
But the activities go from everything from how to do a family meeting to having an ice cream sundae today. So there's just a lot of fun stuff on the app, but mainly the whole point is that the expert coaching that answers parents' questions and helps them apply these 12 habits in their daily lives and overcome the hurdles that they might be experiencing as they're trying to do that. And then also the supportive community that folks get. So it's a Catholic HOM, stands for Households on Mission, and folks can get that wherever they get their apps.
Amazing. And then, I'm sure our listeners probably screaming at their phone right now, but the 12 habits, I don't know if you want to share them or if you want to share a couple of the habits, but I'm sure that I have quite a few parents who are like, what are these habits?
What are they? Yeah. Well, yeah. So we broke the whole framework is really, we call it the liturgy of domestic church life. And it's because these habits are actually, well, let's back it up. A liturgy, is a way of worshiping God that was actually instituted by God, right? So the liturgy of the Eucharist, right? Nobody invented a way to turn bread and wine into the body and blood of Christ. Jesus had to do that.
Yeah.
Well, nobody invented the human family either. God did that. And at the beginning of time, when he created the family, he built certain habits into his design of the family that when families do these things, they thrive. And social science research shows that these habits that we've identified from our research are actually common to all happy, healthy families across time and culture. The habits might look different from household to household or culture to culture, but they're in common. So again, prioritizing family time, generous affection is another example. Gentle guidance approach to discipline as opposed to a heavy-handed approach to discipline. These kind of rituals for working, playing, talking, and praying together that are built into the daily life of the family. Then there are also the activities that enable families to reach out to others and serve in the home and then serve in their communities as well. So,
as a family,
as
opposed to one more thing that divides the family because, mom's on women's group and dad's at, the men's group and the kids are off at youth group and they never see each other and they don't serve together.
And when families do these things, their daily life becomes a little way of holiness in the home. That it becomes how I can live my faith and use all the stuff of family life to draw closer to God and to each other. And so they're just simple things, but we teach families how to bring the faith into those things through the Catholic Home app so that they and their kids can experience the faith as a source of the warmth in the home.
Amazing. Yeah, great. We are running out of time, but this has been an amazing conversation. What is one place that you would suggest the overwhelmed parent who I want to do this. I want to do this. There's so much there. Where would you suggest they start?
I really would encourage folks to get the app because here's the thing. We never actually wanted to create a product. That wasn't our goal. When we did the study, we actually taught it for a couple of years to family life directors, to parish ministry folks, to parents directly. And our hope was, you're just going to get the information and go run with it. But the feedback that we got was, this is all amazing stuff. We want to do it. But then we get home and what did you say? And how does it work? And then the kids push back and then and so so the response we got was, can you please give us some support? So we created the app in response to people saying, we want to do this, but we really need help. And so rather than it being a static app where there's just stuff on there that you can kind of go in and use, there's plenty of content, but we wanted it to be dynamic where it was all about community and it was all about coaching. And so you've got a question, a parenting question, you got a question about how to do this or how to pray together or how to get more out of family day or whatever it is. You can ask those questions and get real-time answers and just help get over the hurdles so that you can really live this stuff out. So I
That's
think
all part of the membership of the app too. It's not like, okay, I got the calendar and I got the cartoon series and I got the monthly downloadable, but
no, I have
Yeah.
now
to
I
pay
have
more
this
for
question and I have to, no, we're right there. Just there. Whether it's my 3-year-old keeps getting down from dinner or throwing food or having a hissy fit, or my 17-year-old is dating somebody and I don't know how to, morally guide them through this
Yeah.
without them, thinking that I'm crazy or me feeling uncomfortable or anything in between, even dealing with adult children. And they just ask the question and that day they're going to get a response, unless it's a Sunday, they have to wait for Monday then. But they get a pretty quick response. And sometimes the conversation goes back and forth for a while, and it's just part of being part of that community. So that's that real hand-holding way to jump into this.
That's lovely. Thank you so much for taking the time to share all your wisdom and thoughts with our families. Where can people find you guys if they want to buy books? Where can they find all of your stuff?
the main website is CatholicCounselors.com, where they can learn more about the pastoral telecounseling practice at CatholicCounselors.com.
Our bookstore is there as well.
Our bookstore is there. They can learn more about the radio program, More to Life, at that website as well. And of course, at CatholicHOM.com or by downloading the Catholic Home app.
Perfect. Thank you so much for listening. As always, you can find all that information. We will link it below. And as always, we will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fairest Love Podcast. In 2026, we continue to share the devotion to Mary, Mother of Fairest Love. If you like what you heard on today's show, please visit our website at fairestlovefamilyproject.org, where you can find additional podcasts and other resources for families. Be sure to also check us out on social media at Fairest Love Project. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on an episode soon.